Hi, I'm Taylor Snodgrass with OHS TV Studio, and I'm here today for a Local Legend Spotlight with Bill Vogt. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay, to start, how many years were you a band director here at Owensville?
I was here 19 years.
It's a very long time.
It was a wonderful 19 years, and the time we spent here is just wonderful.
Are you from Owensville originally, or did you move here from somewhere else?
No, I wasn't here originally. I kind of the trek I took. I started my teaching career in Bell, and then from there I was at Warrensburg for a number of years. I taught Warrensburg, and then from Warrensburg I went to Rolla. I was at Rolla High School and UMR both, and then from UMR I came here, and then I was here for 19 years.
Do you have really good experiences teaching with other schools?
Oh yeah, I loved everywhere I was at. I went into a paper article I wrote here a little while back. The thing that I really enjoyed here the most was that the students here were hardworking. I mean, I think I finally made a real good match here because I'm a real hardworking person, a very task-oriented person, and it matched up real well with the students. They wanted to be successful, and I said, well, the success is going to be through a lot of dedication and hard work, and they did. They were the hardest working students of any place I ever taught, and it really showed.
What was your favorite part about teaching Owensville Band?
That's a tough question. I would say that they student wise and booster wise, they're the best anywhere I was. There was never anything I would ever ask of them that was too great that they felt they couldn't do. And every year, I know it was a goal of mine. It was always a goal. I always said to them, guys, this is not my band, it's yours. And so therefore they wanted the next year to always be better. And the seniors took ownership in it. And so therefore when we started the next year, they always want to know, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do to be better? And so I said, okay, this is what we have to do. Boosters were the same way. They were never scared of any aspect of things I would ask them to do. They say, well, what do we got to do? And with them was, well, how much money are we going to have to get,
Mm-hmm.
And so, what's this going to cost us next year? And I could kind of give them an approximate value, and they say, okay, let's get to work. And their sons and daughters are the same way. They say, well, this is what we're going to do this year, so let's get to work, and they did it well.
Were there any special memories or students that stood out to you in your time teaching here?
Well, memory-wise, some of them say, well, what were some of the best bands during that time? Man, that is a hard question, but probably if I was going to summarize two events that really stand out was the year we went to Bands of America National Contest. It was in the Dome. And we went there a year before and just got smoked. I mean, it was, in one of these deals, I thought we were pretty good, and we went in there and just got smoked. And so we learned a lot about that experience. And so we came back in the following year, and we took second place in that class, and we were the first Missouri band to ever place in a Bands of America contest. And at that point, that's a memory I'll never forget. And then also, when we went down to the Orange Bowl, we went down to the bowl in Florida, and we went there and took the whole thing, and won all the auxiliary awards and all the special awards, and then got to march in the national televised ABC parade on top of that. And I would say if there's a lot of things that could go into some real highlight parts of it, but those are probably the two biggest ones that kind of come to mind.
So speaking of the bowl games, is there anything else that you can tell me about those?
Well, there's a lot of actually a lot of funny moments, I guess, with that. We did the whole gamut. We went to all the Disney World and Epcot Center and so forth, and I can always remember we had a number of parents who went with us. We took 150 people to that thing, and so and one thing when we went behind the scenes, they were taking the room and they'll tell you the do's and don'ts when you're behind the scenes in Disneyland. And one thing is you take no pictures and you take nothing on video. Well, we had a couple parents came late, and so they met us there, and so they came. Then they let them in, and so I had a parent. I'll never forget it. He was videotaping at that time. The Ohio State Band was there, and he was videotaping the Ohio State Band and all their front guard, all their color guard, and the whole everything. And he's just having a good old time. And so finally, one of the security people tapped him on the shoulder and says, you can't be doing that, so we need to erase all that off of there. So he goes, oh, okay. So he pushes this button on his video machine, but he didn't erase a thing. We came back, and when we finally got back, we watched the whole thing in his house, and that was pretty neat.
It does sound really neat. So Nathan Gargis, one of your former students, who is now a percussion teacher at Owensville, wanted to ask you how you thought education has changed since you were a teacher here at Owensville to now.
Oh, wow, that's a toughie. I would say that right now there's always been a lot of demands in these students, and I respected that the whole time I taught here. But I think now it's more so than ever, and I think there's more of it. There's more so than what you have to accomplish before you leave here than ever before, and in turn that affects the time we can spend on rehearsal. We used to spend a lot of rehearsal. I mean, we'd spend mornings, evenings, nights, weekends. And anymore, I think you'd have to be able to condense it a lot more because the time that's available to students now, I think, is way less than it was when I was there.
Yeah. So how do you feel about community support for bands?
Oh my, this the community support here was phenomenal. I mean, we'd have to go out and raise a lot of money. I mean, this is one thing I can truly say is a money quote sport. And it really is. At the time, I mean, when I first came here, I always had great support and great band boosters, and we'd sit down and at that time when they'd first take off and go to a fundraising event, they'd be happy if they go to Walmart and would raise a couple $100s at a bake sale. And so I finally had to say, guys, we can't be thinking hundreds, we got to think thousands now. I always felt I need to get you all a book of Zig Ziglar's The Magic of Thinking Big. If you've ever had an opportunity to get that, do it. I mean, your mind has to think things on a larger scope. And finally, as time went on, we just had to keep thinking things on a larger scope. And so, in turn, community-wise, you talk about just tremendous support. We would leave to go to a marching band contest, and every marquee, all the way from Owensville, clear out of town to Gerald, every marquee would be saying, "Go band, good luck band." People would be lined up along the street cheering for us. So we go down through. They know what time of the day we'd be going through there, and it was just phenomenal. And there was never anything too large that they wouldn't support us to. When we went to the bowl game, and when we went to Florida, they had different levels of support they could have. At that time, there could be a $5,000 support group, a $1,000 support group, a $500 support group. And they'd all pick out one, and that's how we got there. I can't say enough about the booster club. When we finally when we auditioned and got accepted to go to that bowl game, it was the first concept was, well, if they can get the money to go, they've been accepted to go, and that booster club, especially my president at that time was Rosalie Kaczynski, and I got to give her a pat on the back here because she goes, "It's not if, we're going," and we did.
That's really, really great to hear. So kind of keeping on that same topic, what do you think are some of the best things about our community?
Putting this school as number one. I think they never, this school was always a large part of everything that was the full nucleus of all that went on here. I remember when I first came here, and still to the day I retired, the football stadium would be full of people. The basketball, when I first came here, of course, the basketball court was where the whole high school is, where the library is. And I remember my first year here, and I thought students were kidding me. They go, "Mr. Vogt, the band we won't be able to play homecoming." Oh, come on, really? I said, "No, we don't play homecoming." And I had to go ask the principal at that point because I thought maybe I was going to pull my leg. "Oh no, man, there's no place for you to sit." Really? "Oh no, there'll be people sitting on the stage with people out the hallway. There'll be no place for you to go." I came that night. That's the way it was. The place, these events were packed. And so I guess to answer your questions, the events and the students have always been a very, very high priority and rated very high in this community, and it still is.
So you were talking a lot about traveling with the band and everything. How big was the band whenever you taught here?
We would range. It could be anywhere from 70 to 80, and that'd be guard the whole thing, and it could be, well, I take it back. It could be anywhere from 65 to 80, because there's some years where we'd be smaller than others, but it'd average around 70, right around in that area, and that was the thing we always tried. At least it was kind of a taste of mine that. I'd always say to many people, many colleagues, and many band directors that, you won't find many more aggressive band directors than me. I mean, I wanted a real big sound, and I guess the thing with I got to learn that from being involved in being involved in the drum and bugle corps marching, with developing that big sound, we do a lot of warm ups and a lot of fundamental drills to get that big sound, and I just like there'd be times that if you'd be sitting in the bleachers, I'm gonna give you whiplash up in there, and so I liked the big sound until the day I retired. I just liked that big brassy sound.
Was it hard for you to incorporate so many people into one band with other things going on, or was it decent? Was it pretty easy for you?
It was pretty easy, really. We through our summer camp, I could print off. Say, for example, yourself, I could print off exactly where exactly you would go in every set and every movement. And so, therefore, then we'd block that on. Now, the difference now is that we would block our show on a grass practice field, okay? and so you'd say this to people, that we use spray paint, okay? And so every section of the band would have different color spray paint, okay? Well, can't do that out on artificial surface. And so they could paint those marks down, and then here again they'd stay a long time until you get monsoon rains. Of course, it'd worsen it, but that would stay long enough that a person could get used to hitting that same exact spot. So then, therefore, instead of marching to a spot, you're marching to a form, and so then they could learn to read the form, and it make a huge difference. So that's pretty much how we did it.
Did you write your own drill, or
Yes.
did you?
Yeah, that was I got to learn a show from probably one of the best writers in the country. His name was Garrett Chapinski. And Chapinski, he wrote for the Madison Scouts, Drum Bugle Corps, and Santa Clara Vanguard. And I was always big in Santa Clara Vanguard because I always thought that, and he taught that what drill really is, drill is illusion, and that's what I tried to do here. Everything was where you would move and go to a certain set, and it was all within somebody would watch that, and the reaction is, how did they get there? And so it was always an illusion. It's like a David Copperfield moving the Statue of Liberty and wondering where to go and how to get there, and then it comes back. And so therefore you're always writing that everything was an illusion in constant motion. I never want to sit still very long, because I always used to say to the band, we can't stay here very long, because once you stay here very long, it keeps the judge a lot of time to pick you apart. He can tell if your spacing's bad now. He can tell if your front's bad now. He can tell if your foot's bad now. Whereas if you're constantly moving all the time, it keeps him working to find out what it's going to be. And to this day, I still judge throughout the country, and it's made me, I remember when I used to write, so I got to watch a band like that, so it makes me more on my toes too.
So I'm curious, how does writing the drill work?
It's timing, okay? It first starts with your music, and so timing and what they call timing in phase, okay? And so many times I'll see bands today that their timing is not good. They might have a good movement going on, but their timing, what I mean by timing, and from a layman's vantage point, is your music is not changing tempo with it. Okay, it seems like it wants to variate from maybe a 100 beats per minute, maybe to 108, and it never has enough deviance in it. So you can't get good timing, and also then sometimes you can have your timing where it will get slow, but then it stays slow too long. So and then it gets boring. Okay, and so and a lot of times people never get where that tempo never really picks up, really, to make it exciting at the end. There'll be many times at the very end of our show, we'd actually be playing and jazz running at the same time. And you really don't see that much, because I think sometimes people say, well, you can't play and do that at the same time. Yeah, you can. you, even though you may not think you can, but you can. It's just the footwork is different, and so therefore you really have that excitement going, and you have that constant flow of motion. And that flow of motion will pick up and pick up and pick up and get so exciting at the end, you just want to scream, "Wow, man, it really did happen." An expression I used to say all the time is that, man, you want to get those people where they're sitting in the bleachers and the mamas will throw their babies off the balcony. They get so excited but that excitement is done through tempo.
Did you have any shows that kind of hold a more special place in your heart, or that were more of your favorites than others?
You know, I wish I had my oldest daughter here. 'Cause my oldest daughter, she could tell every year, every tune we played. Her memory was phenomenal with that. And now I can't do that. I can't think, well, we played this and this and this tune. The very last show I played here was, I guess that's maybe something I can remember. It was a tune. It was arranged by, I had my music arranged by a professional arranger out in Boulder, Colorado. It was a piece called 12 Seconds to the Moon. And it did everything. It was really, really exciting. Another one maybe was the tune was back. I guess it might have been the one we won the BOA with, was Gloria, and it was also arranged by him. And the thing is, when we kind of start going to the BOA format, all our music was in custom arranged, and the good, bad, and ugly about that is it's arranged to fit the band. The ugly part about it is it's expensive. Okay, and so but to constantly go to the next level, of course, is the next level of expense as well. But the music, I always felt my number one priority was I wanted real good looking music. And I mean, that's how you're going to make your band better. That's how your students are going to play better. And so that was a top priority, to get a real good book written and arranged. And so if I was going to maybe try to pick shows, like I say, well, the one we went to Florida with, the 2000 show we went to BOA with, the year 98 was a real good year too. I had so many players that are now teaching here. I mean, they teach here, or they're superintendents, principals, or they're counselors, you know, and so it goes back that they probably, if you ask them, they could probably tell you even better than I can.
So you were talking about some of the techniques that you guys used. How have those kind of changed over the years, or have they changed?
Not much. I watch bands move now. The only thing I think now, during my tenure in the way it is now, I think the marching footwork is way more emphasized than it is now. I think it's more of getting from point A to point B, but not necessarily how you get from point A to point B. Whereas in my day, it was very in the day they used to give an outstanding marching trophy, and that's exactly what it was. Is that how the footwork worked, what your body stature was like, how the upper torso, how it projected to the audience. That was all put in perspective. I don't see that as heavily weighed now as what it was then.
So what are some of your favorite things to see bands doing?
I like the aspect now. In fact, I always say I retired too early, because that was going to be my next thing I was wanting to implement as I went on. Was they're using a lot of vocal solos now, which I really like. I mean, you have a student that's a real good vocal soloist. I mean, and then there's so much microphoning and there's so much artificial sound production now that you can actually, you know, mic these soloists. You could mic a vocal quartet, and everything can be microphoned, so you don't have to be overblowing or overdoing the instruments, and you can still keep a nice natural sound. And whereas I think now what I see is featuring a vocal soloist marching clear across the field, and it just sounds like you're sitting right in the seat right next to you, and it's enjoyable. It really is.
Do you have any like specific instrument solos that you really like hearing with those?
Well, you know, it went along for many years that if you were going to have a soloist, it's a trumpet soloist, because that was the only thing you could project over a band. And now Uh, there, it's kind of been very tasteful. I've heard some real nice tasteful alto saxophonists play. Here again, they're mics, and it's real tasteful. It sounds like a woodwind instrument instead of trying to sound like a trumpet. And so I would say now I've heard some real nice even some mixed woodwind quartets on the front sideline. I might have an oboe, a bassoon, a clarinet, and flute, play, but it's all mic'd, and it's very very tastefully done.
So, assuming that you were in band in high school, how was that for you?
Ask that again. I don't know if I don't know if I quite got that.
So, okay, I'm assuming you were in band in high school. Yes. Okay. How were some of those experiences for you personally, being in band, compared to when you were a band director?
Oh, it was just so refreshing to be. I was the type of a student in high school. I did everything, and that's not necessarily the way I see really the way things. Like say how has it changed? I think that's a big change today. When I was in high school, lettered in three major sports. I was in band. I was in FFA. President of my FFA chapter. I just did everything. And so, getting back to your question of the band was that it was a nice, neat experience to be doing something I enjoyed that would be different from something else I did in school.
So, what instrument did you play whenever you were in band?
Wow, now that's loaded. I in marching band, I was a percussionist. In concert band, I was a low brass player. And I even when I went did that even through college. When I was in college, I played tuba in the concert band, but then I played snare drum and drum line, and so I kind of had both arenas that way. And I was really kind of glad I did that because there's a lot of difference in both avenues. So that was kind of my background.
Yeah, so for me personally, I'm in color guard for marching band, and then whenever I go to concert band, I play trumpet. So that's always, I think it's super fun to kind of switch between the two because doing one thing for so long, you almost kind of want to change for a little bit, and so I find it super fun, and I love marching band and doing color guard and everything.
I tell you said something there though. My wife was commenting on this before I came over, and because I told her, so I'm going to be interviewed by somebody who's in band and in color guard both. That'd be neat because now you're going to see the diversity of the two, and she goes, well, it says, I guess it'd be interesting to see what she plays because if she plays trumpet, she would have been in the color guard when you were here. And I said, well, that's probably very true because the thing that I always used to say that the band here that the end of the world is determined by the shortage of trumpet players. I said you got to have those trumpet players have to not only be a number of them, they got to be real good because they carry so much of your life depends on the marching band on your trumpet players. Your trumpet players and your percussion. If they're pretty strong, you can do some things. I'm not going to say you're going to win some major bowl championship, but I'm saying you can go and do real well. But I don't want to insult you. I had to put that 2 bits in where they're worth it, so therefore you can go back to the band and go, well, God, I'm sure glad he's not here.
So what were some of the creative ways that you implemented the color guard into some of your marching shows?
As time went on, and it used to be earlier, it was equipment handling, okay, and we it was where if you're in the color guard, you did equally as well flag and rifle. I mean, there's times we put all the flags down and the entire color guard do all rifles, okay, and you could take your flags and your entire rifle corps be throwing triples, and that was the emphasis was on handling the equipment, okay. As time went on now a lot of emphasis is heavily dance, and so I guess if I was going to say what I'd like to see is if you could heavily dance and then implement the dance and the equipment work evenly, it'd make me more happy. But right now it's not.
So we were talking earlier about size of the band. And then now we were talking about how some people would have flag and some would have rifle. How big was your color guard?
We always like to run 13 to 16. And that the 16 mark was always a nice color enhancement of the band size. I always tried to get where not necessarily would want the tail wagging the dog, so to speak. And we probably could have went 20, but always the thing is I always like to keep a good quality amount of people, so I didn't want to let the numbers, outweigh the talent. So we ran between 13 and 16.
So, because there were so many people, did you guys have a special process for joining band in color guard?
Not band wise. I mean, but when we started as sixth graders, my goal was I want to see you graduate. When you start, I want to see you go all the way through. And color guard was kind of we did color guard. It was a high school arena. Okay, we didn't go into the middle school as far as like have a middle school color guard. And here that was always the goal too. Okay, if you make it as a freshman, we want to see you graduate, because every year you'll become to keep being more comfortable with it, and so therefore you'll get better at it. So at that point, that's what you want to hold on to.
So, what advice do you have for OHS students graduating and going on to the next chapter of their life after high school?
Well, so many times I'd hear high school students and they say, "Well, man, I would really like to be a doctor, for example." And I said, "Well, then you need to get to work." Go to this. Yeah, but I don't want to spend 8 years of my life. And I'd say, "Well, no, wait a minute here." I said, so how old are you going to be 8 years from now? And they might say, could be say 26. And so I say, well, you're going to be 26 with or without being a doctor. So if you want to be a doctor, you need to go do it, because time's going to go by and you're going to be that age, so you might as well be that age being a doctor rather than be that age of not doing something you want to do the rest of your life. And I always say, you want to do something that when you go to work, it's not like going to work. I say that when I would come here. I said, I taught 31 years, but I never felt like I went to work. I came here and did something I enjoyed so much that I never felt like I was having to get up and go to work. It was just I came and did something I enjoyed for 30 plus years, and it wasn't going to work. And I think whatever you pick out to do, don't let time be the dictator of it. Do something you're going to enjoy that you won't be thinking of going to work the rest of your life.
Thank you so much for coming in today and doing this interview with me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That was Taylor Snodgrass with OHS TV Studio, Local Legend Spotlight, Bill Vogt.